Hello, everybody. I feel weird introducing this because Catherine and I are actually co-hosting this awesome episode that has been probably months in the making at this point. So I'm excited we're finally doing this. We are talking with the elusive Mr. Fox, or as our friend Shanti from Aquarius Rising Africa says, Mr. Foxy Fox. And according to all the emails I've received about Mr. Fox, a lot of the ladies in this community do find him to be a mysterious little fox. So I'm so glad to be here with Mr. Fox and my friend Catherine Edwards here today to talk about the Law of One. How are you today, Catherine and Mr. Fox? How are you guys doing?
I'm doing good.
Let Mr. Fox go first because this is the important one. So how are you doing, Mr. Fox?
I'm doing well. I'm excited to share this information with you all.
Great. And I'm doing very, very well. And I've been so looking forward to this, both of you, but particularly you, Mr. Fox. One, I love foxes. And secondly, the reason I've been so looking forward to this is something I know a little bit about, but not a lot, but it's coming up into the awareness and linking into so many other areas that people are looking into. So introducing this to people that aren't really expert on the Law of One and understanding how this knowledge could not be more important at this time is going to be so valuable for all our listeners. So thank you so much for doing that. So can we start, Bryce and Mr. Fox, by asking, Mr. Fox, I would love to know, how did the Law of One first come to your awareness and how long have you been studying it for?
Okay, I've been studying the Law of One, I'd say, for the better part of 20 years now. It just sort of fell in my lap through a friend that was moving to India, and he needed a place to store some of his stuff and part of his library. And I had a big place at the time. And so, I offered to store it for him. And so he gave me this big pile of books that I just, added to my library of books. And one day I was just looking through some of the stuff that he had given me, and the book sort of stood out. And so I pulled it out and started reading it. It happened to be the first book in the 4-book series of the Law of One. They call it the raw material. Anyway, I sat down with it and started reading, and it just drew me in, and it just grew from there. I immediately, after I got done with that book, went out and bought the other 3 in the series, and just started studying them. And it's not something; they're not books that you can just sit down and read all the way through. It's really deep information, and the way that it's sort of done is question answer, and the answers by Ra is could be very complex and sometimes a little obscure, and takes a little while to decipher and really sit with and sort of contemplate with. And so for years I would read a few pages, put it down, really digest it, think about it, and then sort of move forward from there. And so for me, I've probably read the books at least 10 times over, each of the books, and still going back. And I can still, 20 years later, read just passages from it, and it still blows my mind, the information that I missed, because it's so dense.
Can we clarify too? Because we were talking about this before we started shooting, and I think because I mentioned, and you guys, Mr. Fox was the person who introduced me to the Law of One, and when he started talking to me about it years ago, it just resonated. It was like that actually makes a lot of sense for the template of spirituality. But when when I say the Law of One, I think a lot of people think I'm talking about some etherical just law. This is an actual book series, an actual very complex philosophy that was given to people, in the 80s? But you talked about this with Shanti a little bit, that, and I kind of wanted you to touch on this a little bit too, that you're not somebody that really thinks highly of channeling. 99.9% of the channelers you've said you don't even really mess with because it's not accurate. But this really stuck out for you because of the amount of work that went into it. So can you kind of touch on that a little bit?
Yeah. So the work stemmed from one of the main people in the group, because it was a group of 3 people that did this channeling. It was Don Elkins, Carla Ruckert, and Jim McCarthy, which is no longer around, and Carla Ruckert just passed away recently. So Don Elkins, it came from his research on UFOs, and he started to compile all this information dating back from when he was younger in the 60s, where people would have contact with the beings on UFOs, and how these people were getting basically downloaded with messages from these beings. And some of these messages were very positive, talking about a future that we were moving into. And so, his first book is called Secrets of the UFO, and I think you can still get it. It's just a little self-published book that has excerpts from different books that give these they're sort of like channelings that these people did, spontaneous channelings. When these people, people from the past would have these UFO encounters, they would have these messages downloaded, and then they would either relay these messages through hypnotic sessions, or they just remembered them. They were just sort of stuck in their head. And so anyway, that led Don Elkins down a path of trying to figure out, could you create a situation where someone could intentionally channel other beings, whether they be from UFOs or from other worlds, that could beam that information down. So he started doing this research and trying to figure out a controlled environment where you could set it up to where you could actually channel these beings in real time, intentionally. And so that's what led to eventually them setting things up where they started to channel Ra. The first, and I say person, but it's really not a person that they're channeling in this sense. They're channeling. It's coming from what they call a social memory complex. And so when you reach the densities above densities above third density, that the consciousness of the people of a planet create what's called a social memory complex. And so, they may say they're channeling from Ra, but it's really coming from the consciousness of all the beings, because they sort of have to merge together when you reach that level of evolution. Anyway, the first being or social memory complex that they channeled was called Hatone, and Hatone was giving very similar messages to Ra, but these messages were being relayed through someone who wasn't entering into the same state that Carla Ruckert entered into during the channelings of Ra. And I know I'm sort of getting into obscure stuff, and I'm not explaining the backstory clearly, and I'll try to do that now. So what makes the Ra material so unique from all these other channelings that they were attempting to do, and channelings that came before them, was that they set it up where Carla Ruckert would lie on a table and she would go completely unconscious, and she wasn't aware of what she was saying during these sessions, and she would start to talk in this strange, very slow, monotone voice. And that's when the Ra material started to come forth. They switched over from the Hatone material, and when they set up a more controlled environment. And so there were only 3 people in the room. That was Don Elkins, Jim McCarthy, and then Carla Ruckert as the channel that Ra would speak through. You want to say?
And they did this. This isn't, I want people to be very clear, because we have a lot of fake spiritualists out there who are claiming hypnosis, blah, blah, blah. But these people, and I know I've spoken years ago, I started to speak about this. I put the links down below in the description box where I kind of talked about this group, this trio of people. They had spent like years preparing for this, from what I remember researching. Like they worked together for a very long time before they even started to attempt to use Carla as kind of the conduit. And something you had said to me is that when you go under hypnosis the way that she did, it's actually very dangerous. It's an actually very dangerous situation to put yourself in. And Ra kind of spoke on that. So and we don't have to go into the details of that. People can research this for themselves to understand the intricacies of this. But I want to make that clear that these were not people that took some little course online and then 5 minutes later were claiming to put people under hypnosis and claiming to have all these answers and all these messages. They really did their due diligence and really worked at this together like a full-time job for decades before all of this came about.
Yeah.
And that's sadly, that's something that's really missing, I think, in the spiritual community now, is people don't understand that this takes a lot of time. And I wanted to ask, so let's talk about, and you kind of spoke about this, like who, because you'll say the raw material, the law of one, they're kind of interchangeable as the same thing. So who is Ra? Let's just kind of, I know you just kind of said who Ra was, but can we, because I think a lot of people confuse it with the Egyptian Ra, when I don't, from what you've said, it's not the same being, correct?
I think it is and it isn't. I mean, because they do talk about how they were the ones that were responsible for the building of the pyramids in Egypt, and also their group split off, and so there was another part of their group that was responsible for working with the people, the cultures in South America, and with them building their pyramids. And so they did have a history here, and they also said that they came to the planet during Atlantis, but they decided not to engage with the people of Atlantis. So they came to our planet 11,000 years ago during the time of Atlantis, but they decided not to engage with that culture, and so they left, and they came back a couple thousand years later to the people of Egypt, and actually it was Akhenaten that they had contact with, because they said that his consciousness and his teachings were the closest to the law of one. So they felt like they could come.
They find a person wherever they're going. They find a person who would be open consciously to receiving their message, basically.
Right. Yeah. And it's also not just one person. It's also a calling. You know, it doesn't have to be necessarily a conscious calling, but they feel a calling with that population. They're calling for help, and so that's what brings them down to engage with different cultures.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
yeah, because the collective consciousness, we're going to come on to more in a minute, because that's a key part. But for people that have never heard of the law of one, obviously it's a huge body of information. I mean, it really is. I've only started looking into it relatively recently, and it's absolutely fascinating. But Mr. Fox, is there an overarching principle that would sort of sum up some of the key messages of the law of one? So if someone's never heard of it, how would you start to explain what the law of one is actually about and why it's so relevant to us now?
That's a good question, and I find that difficult to really sum up what the law of one is, other than the pursuit of the one infinite creator. Yeah, and there's so many different levels of that, but it's to eventually merge with the one infinite creator, and to know that you are not separate from the one infinite creator. Yeah. And that there's a certain path that we take. Actually, there's two paths you can take, either a service to self or a service to others. They're teaching the service to others. Yeah. And
so let's clarify that too. Service to others would be the positive path, positive polarity. Right. Service to self would be the negative polarity.
Right.
So just
and they consider both of those legitimate paths to the creator.
So can I ask, being very, okay, so we can start to see how this is really linking into, we're being very careful with our words here, but with events that people are aware of that's going on in the world now. But if service to self is negative polarity, how would that fit in to people that, for example, study or serve religions such as Satanism?
Well, that, I mean, you know, they're learning through Satanism or Luciferianism, the service to self.
Yeah.
And so, you know, you're working towards polarizing negative, which, you know, which is a very hard path.
Can we back up a little bit and just kind of go through, because that's such an important thing Catherine just hit on. Something that we spoke about earlier today and we've spoken about many times, and I hope I'm making this clear. When you started talking to me, Mr. Fox, about the Law of One, which was years before any of this started happening, it started to really change the way I perceive the world around me, including myself. And when all of these shenanigans started happening, it made a lot of sense as to why they were happening. And something that we hear in our community a lot is, oh, the bad guys are gone, they're gone. And no, that's not correct, because the bad guys are also what they call harvesting too. So can we kind of back up, and because I think Catherine hit on something so important that we really want people to understand. And so when we talk about density, can we just quickly go through the different densities first so we understand where they merge together and then where they separate?
Sure. Yeah, we could do that. But we sort of got off topic with who Ra was, because there's a little bit more that I can go over with that. We sort of jumped out of that because I was explaining, you know, how they visited during the time of Egypt and how they were responsible for helping them build the pyramids. And they were coming to share a technology with us that really helped them in their third density cycle. And so that technology was using the pyramidal shape. So they said that the use of shapes along with crystals together, and you can use that for healing. But also you can use that shape and crystals to help you learn the lessons that you need to learn so you could graduate into fourth density. So they brought that technology and were offering that technology to us. And what had happened was, instead of us using that technology for the betterment of everyone and the planet, it was sort of hijacked and was only reserved for, you know, their royalty. And so that threw their whole plan off. And so to us, we could say, you know, that was a huge mistake. And sort of in a way, they could say, yeah, that was a mistake, but also from their level of understanding, there are no mistakes. It's easy. That's sort of easy for them to say, but that's sort of what started to throw this planet into such chaos, because they give an example of how relatively easy it was for their planet because they're from Venus. And so, you know, how it didn't take them so long to graduate into fourth density positive, unlike us, who we're nearing the very end of our 75,000 year cycle of third density. And in our planet, there's not many people on the planet that are going to be graduating into fourth density positive when our planet shifts. And so they're still here with us, helping to remedy what that technology that they gave us way back then has done to our planet and the beings on the planet. I think we're still reaping that sort of mistake.
Well, and
Or suffering for that, what we could say sort of would be considered a mistake.
And that's where, because you've talked to me a lot about, with the darkness, the negative polarity, the light polarity, which I say all the time on my channel because it makes absolute sense that when we look at things like the pyramids, the crystals, anything, darkness can't create anything. It can only steal from the light. And so these beings brought this technology, these pyramids, these stuff to planet Earth to try to help us in our graduation. But because this is a planet of choice, the elite got a hold of this technology that was meant for the good and have manipulated it for the bad. And so isn't that why Ra also, what is Ra also called? There's another name they call themselves, correct?
The brothers and sisters of sorrow.
Because they feel bad that they were trying to help us with a...
Well, I wouldn't say they feel bad. They don't necessarily feel bad. I think that it's more that they feel responsible.
For the mess,
and coming from their level, there's a certain amount of naivete on their part. When you're at such a high level of six density, it's hard in your billions of years removed from your previous third density cycle. Even with all the awareness that they still have a hard time judging what's going to be the most beneficial and how is our message going to be taken. Because they said when they came down, they walked amongst the people and they were teaching. But they said that for everything that they said, everything that they taught, we interpreted that in a multitude. They said for every word uttered, people had 30 different understandings of it. And so they came with the best of intentions, but once they were here for a while and they gave us this technology and these teachings, it was so quickly perverted by us.
It's so
through our lack of understanding that it just completely threw us off. Instead of helping, it actually, in a way, it hindered us, and it wasn't necessarily their fault. Yeah.
And we see that so often when we look at technological advancements or spiritual advancements or knowledge advancements, whatever you might like to look at it, in all areas where most of these tools it's not the tool that's inherently good or bad, it's who's behind it. And this is what really grasped me. Now, I just wanted to say, for anyone that's not familiar with this material, all the sessions were recorded, so you can read the transcripts of those recordings which are in the book, so you can go into this in a lot of detail, because obviously we're just introducing a lot of the concepts today.
And I mean, I have to skip over a lot of stuff. It's so dense. I have a hard time with summing it up, even with all the study that I've done. There's so many things that they've said that, like I said, could be interpreted in many different ways, and I'm trying to do my best to really narrow it down and to simplify it, but it's not so simple.
And that's something I've known you for a very long time now, and Catherine, I'm just going to put it out there, Catherine, Shanti, everybody you're filming with knows who you are in real life and knows your relationship to me and how long we've known each other. And I will tell you guys, watching right now, you and I have known each other for such a long time, and we have had so many in-depth conversations just over one of the teachings of Ra in our years, because it is so complex and it is so there's just so many different, there's a depth, there's just this never-ending depth to what they're saying. And so I want to clarify before we go back and look at the densities, Mr. Fox, on Aquarius Rising Africa, there was somebody who asked if you were in the system, if you were a Freemason, and that made me laugh because I know you in person, and just to see you standing in one of those aprons made me giggle. So that would be hysterical. So I'm going to ask you straight up, Mr. Fox, are you in the system and are you a Freemason?
Absolutely not.
And actually, you are the one who told me, weren't you, about the crimes, weren't you?
Told you about what?
You're the one that kind of told me about all the crimes of the controllers, right?
Oh, totally, yeah.
You were responsible for really waking me up to a lot of stuff over time.
Yeah.
Before all the shenanigans happened. Now, Mr. Fox, So you're not in the system at all. You have just everything, and this is something you spoke about with Shanti too, which I'll just say again. In
Yeah,
the law of one, the light, the positive polarity often will always want to share their teachings. They don't hide anything. They want to share their teachings, where the
right.
darkness doesn't do that, which we can get into more of a conversation about that. So everything you're saying right now, and we were prepping for this show and talking about it, I kept telling you, don't worry about going into so much detail. Just give an overall review, because we're going to put the links in the description box, because everything you're telling people is not something you learned in some lodge, is it?
No, it's not.
You
No,
read
it's
it
all
in
like
a
all
book.
it's all in the books, and also it comes from me, contemplating this, what I've read, for many, many years, and then also, looking into my own life, and how I can apply that to my life, and also, what I've read and what I see in the world, and how that all plays together,
And I will say too, something when I told you about that comment, you were very kind in your response. You didn't respond to it, but you were very kind, and you said, I can understand how, I'm just paraphrasing what you said. You said, I can understand how people who are just now waking up to true spirituality would be confused that there are people out there that have been studying this stuff for 20 and 30 years. And so I
right.
want to put that into perspective, that just because you're new to true spirituality does not mean that there are other humans who are also, a lot of people aren't new to this. A lot of people, and I know you as a human being, you've been a seeker your whole life. I know you grew up on military bases with your family and you saw things there and it made you question, not bad things. Like, I'm not talking about that, just basic stuff. And so, and you can elaborate on whatever you want to elaborate on that. But just the idea, because you're not someone that, I mean, you've had teachers, but you don't take authority well. I couldn't see you like being ordered to do something, because that's why you own your own business. So, um,
Right.
so it just cracked me up. So no, guys, Mr. Fox and Catherine and Shanti and the people that film with Mr. Fox are aware of why he is hiding his identity. And I think if people understood what that reason was, they would understand why he is hiding his identity. It's for safety purposes, all
And
that
I
stuff.
look like shit on Zoom.
Well, yes, I'd quite like to be wearing an outfit. Now, one of these things, Mr. Fox, that I wanted to cover, one of the things I found most fascinating looking at the early transcripts from some of the early sessions,
Yeah.
was that this social memory complex that they're channeling,
Yeah.
finds it hard to look at us humans on the 3D Earth at the moment as separate entities. Now, one of the reasons why I find this so interesting is we have a lot of people talking about the energy of the planet, the collective consciousness of the planet.
Yeah.
So how important is that understanding that when you move up the dimensions, that they don't see or read us almost as individual entities? It's more of a collective consciousness. Is that right?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, they could see us in many different ways, and I don't remember reading anything about how they would see us all as one, because they definitely hear separate callings, yeah, for assistance and help. So, and it's important. It's ideally it's important for those in service to others that we come together and sort of move together into fourth density, positive. Yeah, but that's extremely difficult now. We're all being fragmented through so many different ways, and so
Intentionally fragmented, because, well, as we talk about the collect, can we go back and just go through, like, just you don't have to go into much detail, but so we have first density, second density, third density, which is where we are now, and all of these are existing on the same planet, and then fourth density is where it's split. So can you kind of just, what's a first density planet? What's a first density object of consciousness?
okay, well, let's back up a little bit and say, so a planet is an entity. You could say that as you raise up in densities, eventually you'll make it to a density where you become a planet. Yeah. And so that planet before, or that entity, which they call a logos, before that logos, or that entity creates itself into a planet, it contemplates how it's going to grow. So it's potentiated itself. It's decided how its first density needs
It's
to
almost
form.
like it has a soul contract too. So it's like the planet has a
totally.
soul contract.
It's got a plan, and it potentiates itself, and so it understands what the parameters are for growth. Yeah. And so it forms itself on all these layers, and then it comes into being, and then it has to play out through billions and billions of years. And so that planet has to start in first density, and then slowly over time, the creatures and the elements on that planet need to grow and evolve along with the planet itself. Yeah. And so when the planet first starts out, it starts out in first density, and that's called the cycle of awareness. And that lasts for approximately 2 billion years. And during that time, everything starts out in chaos, sort of, energy undirected and random. And slowly, over these billions of years, a consciousness, a self-awareness is formed through light coming in, and fire, and those elements banging against one another, and the water molecules turning into steam. And eventually, over these billions of years, these elements start to come together and organize. And as they organize, the water forms into rivers, and the earth forms into mountains, and everything starts to collect together. And like I said, it starts to form these things, oceans and lakes and valleys. And that's a form of these elements creating self-awareness and consciousness. And that's the first density cycle. And so, eventually,
So first density planet, just for people who are brand new to this, does not have any animals, does not have any humans. It is all plant life knowing itself. So that's like a first density object is plants, minerals,
right?
Earth, ground, right? Okay, so I just want to make that clear. So then once it's able to
plants. No, there's going to be no plants.
No plants.
On first density. First density, the only what they call entities that are on the planet are water, fire, air, and earth.
So the elements. It's just the elements.
Elements. And the elements are reacting with one another. Yeah. And that's where they start to gain consciousness by organizing themselves, slowly organizing themselves, and to the point to where they're organized enough that then out of that grows second density. So then second density will start, and that's the longest density of a planet, and they call that the cycle of growth. And that's where, little organisms can start to form in these lakes and these rivers and these oceans, or out of the earth. And then slowly over time, those creatures, plants and animals, start to gain some form of consciousness. Yeah. And then they start to reach for the, like a plant, for instance, how a plant starts to reach for the light. That's that creature, that entity's path towards the creator, towards the light. And so that's the longest density, that lasts for about 4.5 billion years. A planet will go through second density.
That's when animals are introduced, correct? When we start to see wildlife introduced into consciousness.
Yes. Yeah. And so eventually, as these animals start to progress through second density, the planet starts to shift into third density, where these entities start to become self-aware. So they call third density the cycle of self-awareness, and it's the shortest density, lasting approximately 75,000 years.
So that means our timeline on Earth is way off from the powers that be.
Yeah, I mean we're basically at the end of our third density cycle. Yeah.
And that's so. Can we pause here for a second, because this is really the crux of it that I think people need to understand who are in this, and that's why on my title I put the truth behind the Great Awakening, because this is kind of the truth of what's happening. So you've said, Mr. Fox, that third density is the density of choice, and it's also the density of not really knowing.
Right.
Correct? It's just making choices.
Yeah, and also, our planet Earth, it was decided that when it transitions into the next density, and the fourth density, it's going to transition into a positive planet. So it's going to transition into fourth density positive. It could just have as easily transitioned into fourth density negative. But the one thing that is assured here is that when we exit third density, which could be very shortly, we're going to transition into a completely positive planet. So it means that once the planet transitions into fourth density positive, there is going to be no room for disharmony. That's the beauty of fourth density positive. Ra says it's 100 times more positive than anything we've ever experienced on this planet.
Question, a lot of people in this community, Mr. Fox, have been talking about the Earth splitting into two. That's not correct, is it?
No. So when the planet goes into fourth density positive, there can be no third density beings that haven't graduated into fourth density positive. They cannot live on this planet.
Right.
And there's reasons for that. One reason is that at the very beginning of a fourth density cycle, we don't know how to become invisible to and not be detected by third density beings. And that's very important, because if a fourth density being reveals itself, or a fourth density culture reveals itself to a third density culture, it infringes upon their free will. And that's one of the most important things in this galaxy or in this universe during third density, is that the beings that are in third density should not have their free will infringed upon. So everyone that, whether you didn't graduate and have to do a third density cycle over again, or whether you're graduated to fourth density negative, those two types of beings have to vacate the planet. And who knows how that's going to happen. But we can't live together for probably thousands of years but eventually third density life, third density beings can exist on the surface of Earth in that third density realm. And there could be a whole civilization that also is on the fourth density positive part of the planet, because you could say that the planet is wrapped in 8 different layers, and all those are different densities that stack on top of one another.
Is Mr. Fox, is there currently, because the Arcturian anthology actually speaks of this as well, is there currently a fourth density positive civilization amongst us right now that we don't see? No, but children that are people that were born, I think it was 10, 15, or 20 years ago, right around there, could have a dual density body. So you could have both third and fourth density characteristics within you. So let's pause there. It's like, my nephew and my nieces. My nephew's 10. One of my nieces is 8, and the other one is about to turn 2. So they came into this world looking third density, but actually already ready in a fourth density body, ready to go.
Right. Yeah.
So what would be some of the indications of that? So to put that into things of people, we've lost a bit now. might be thinking, well, okay, that's all very well talking about third density body, fourth density body, but we've heard a lot of people talking about they're already in 5D, and there's so much misunderstanding around it.
Right.
So give us some sort of practical examples of what that might be indicated by.
It's something I haven't really looked into much. It doesn't, that's something that doesn't really mean much to me.
Well, I would say for me, the thing that I think I noticed with my nephew and nieces is their level of understanding is very different.
And very kind, very gentle, empath, as you can say, that people there are very empathic. They could have their fourth density bodies, but at the end of the day, to me, that really doesn't matter, because there's also what they call wanderers here. The raw material and the Cassiopeia material both talk about wanderers. There are people here that are from sixth density that came to help those in third density. Yeah. And so, but you could be you could be a sixth density wanderer having this third density experience, and you can get stuck just like anyone else. So you can walk around all day and say, oh, I'm a sixth density wanderer. At the end of the day, it doesn't fucking mean anything.
Let's pause there for a second, Mr. Fox.
You can end up getting stuck like anyone else, because you still, as a sixth density wanderer, you can still not graduate out of this place. Yeah. Or even worse, Ra tells a story about how during their third density cycle, they had two wanderers that came in from sixth density that came to help, but they ended up starting a cult, and they ended up graduating fourth density negative. And they said they were extremely distressed and surprised when they basically woke up and were like, holy shit, we just got stuck in fourth density negative. We were sixth density positive. We came down here to help, but we screwed up so bad, we have to go through a fourth density cycle, go back to third density, graduate again, and move our way back up. And so when people are coming saying, I'm an incarnation of this and that, and I'm a fifth dimension, whatever, fuck it. You can make the same mistakes the lowest level of third density can make, because you come here with the same veil over your consciousness as all of us have. And so I don't want to, I roll my eyes at that. It doesn't fucking matter.
I will say I'm so glad, Mr. Fox, that you said this, because one of the first things you said to me after we got to know each other, you said, you're a wanderer. And I was like, what the hell does that mean? And you explained it, and it made things make sense in my life, but you were very quick to say, but don't even pay attention to that. Just know that's why certain things have happened to you. That's why you get attacked all the time. That's why you wake up with bruises and scratches. That's why your life has been the way it is. But you need to focus on your karmic duty in third density. And Mr. Fox, hallelujah. Thank you for saying that, because how many people do we know in this truther community that are like, I'm the best spiritual person that ever existed. I'm this, I'm that. I'm so high up in dimension that I'm above all of you. That's a surefire ticket to the negative side, isn't it?
Totally. I mean, it makes people rest on their laurels, you know, and not really do the work, because we all have to do the work regardless of what density we're here from. Yeah. And and it's just, I would say that wanderers have it a lot harder than your normal everyday third density, entity looking to graduate to fourth, because we get people that are wanderers get attacked more. Yeah, they have more anomalous stuff that comes up. They have more health issues because this is not their native vibration. Yeah, they tend to be a little sort of outcasts. People don't quite understand them. There's so many things that people that are wanderers have to go through that others don't. We definitely have to deal with so many more attacks from.
Well, you talk about the naivety too, like so with Ra, like you've said this before, that because wanderers are coming down from like a sixth density consciousness, that you would think that they would be more aware of the negative and the scams, but because they've been so separated for so long from third density, that they have this almost naivety to them, that people are going to be good and that they can trust people. And that's something you said something to me a few days ago. because you've known me for such a long time, Mr. Fox, and you've actually literally seen me get physically attacked by spirits, and you've seen me get attacked. Catherine and I have gone through a lot of the same attacks even on the platform. And you said something interesting, Mr. Fox. You said you've survived all these huge attacks, and now what they're doing is sending little attacks your way because they're playing on your sympathy. And that really was like an aha moment for me, because that goes back into that naivety again, that we have a sympathy, we have empathy, and that can be the same for a third density high priority soul that's about to graduate fourth density, that this empathic sensitive side of you can be manipulated by those who are of the negative. And so to have this information just makes you wiser when you're going about your day. It doesn't mean you're superior to anybody else. It just makes you better prepared for what's going to come your way. And so I think I'm so glad. I mean, Catherine, you know as well as I do that there are a lot of assholes in this community that think they're like the guru and the shit, and they're just not. They're forming their own cults.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I'm so fascinated about by this material is, Mr. Fox, have you got any examples, YouTube-friendly words that we're allowed to use, that can give an example of how the Law of One material can help us understand this current stuff that's been coming to the surface? Because even though we talk about what's been happening over the last few years, anyone who's been studying it at all knows that these nefarious activities have been going on forever. It's just that a lot of us haven't been aware of it.
Right.
So,
Well, yeah. So we're in a unique situation because not all planets will have the opportunity for what they call a dual harvest. You know, a lot of planets it'll just be, you know, the opportunity to graduate service to others. And that's just, you know, there'll be no opportunity for people to graduate to, you know, service to self. But we have a mixed situation here where it's set up to where we're mixed together with both people trying to graduate service to others and people trying to graduate service to self. You know, and then of course there's the gray area in between where people that don't even know what's going on here. Yeah. The people that don't know that there's a choice, whether conscious or unconscious, they're just going about their daily life. There's no spirituality that exists within their life really, or it's this very superficial level. And so since we have this option for us to go either direction, of course that's going to cause turmoil. Yeah, because the negative, the service to self, has to harvest through enslaving others, through that battle. Yeah, bringing pain and strife to people and then trying to control people. And so that's why we have so much chaos now. We're entering the very end of our third density cycle. So the war is heating up. Yeah. We're trying to help others. We're trying to share information that will help others make their choice. And then once they've made their choice, to move in that positive path so they can polarize enough to move into the fourth density positive cycle. But then on the other side of that, we have those that either are trying to polarize negative, or people in the gray area, or even people in the trying to polarize positive are getting caught up and influenced by those trying to polarize negative. Yeah. And so that's throwing them off their path. But at the same time, the people trying to polarize negative are doing what they do best, create more chaos. Yeah. But the good thing is that this planet, both the Ra and Cassiopeans say that this planet is mostly positive. Most of the people on this planet are positively oriented people. But the unfortunate thing is, it only takes a few service to self people to screw that all up. Yeah, there's very few people on this planet now that are going to polarize service to self. But those few handful of people can cause so much chaos. So anyway, that's not going to stop until this planet eventually turns into fourth density positive. They're never going to stop that battle. They're never going to say enough is enough.
You're never going to surrender.
You're never going to admit defeat
to others.
In a sense, you're never going to defeat them until the whole planet changes. So if anyone thinks that, oh, this is all going to wind down and there's no such thing as surrender to someone on the path of service to self. Surrender would mean completely depolarizing. Yeah, because to polarize service to self, you have to be 95%. So 95% of your actions have to be service to self. On the flip side, to graduate positive service to others, you only have to be 51%. So 51% of your actions have to be towards service to others. Yeah.
49% of you could be an asshole as long as 51% of you got that wiggle room, right?
But they say that 51% is not easy, you know. And when they say, 51% service to others, they don't mean that 51% of your time you go out and you serve in a soup kitchen. It's like you came here with certain talents, and those talents. A musician could be of service. Someone creating music or art, it could be that simple. Yeah. So there's many things, many professions, or many things you can do throughout your day that could be in service to others. Yeah.
So, Mr.
Can you
Fox,
just explain? Sorry, can I just want you to explain, Mr. Fox, please, about what you mean harvest?
I know I said it's such an obscure term, but harvest would mean, they're not going to come down and harvest as like, chopping down plants, but that's just the term that they use, harvesting. It's like, scooping us up and moving us into this next cycle. And that's
graduation.
What's that?
It's graduation.
Yeah, graduation. Graduating into the next cycle of evolution.
So is it Raw that has said that? So you've spoken a lot about that the planet is going fourth density positive.
Right.
But who says so? How do you know that?
Through the raw material and the Cassiopeia. So maybe it's not. Maybe they're wrong. But
so they can see into the future. The raw material can see where we're going. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, they can see it's written in the planets. They say that it's like a clock. It's got to happen. They can look at the galaxy and how these streams of light are coming from the galactic center, and how our planet, through its rotation, through its spiral, through space and time, is going to enter that beam that represents fourth density positive. Yeah, and so they can see it very clearly. They say it's just like, a clock hitting 12 o'clock. It's that. But give or take, they say they have a very hard time interpreting time. And so, and looking at, they've been around for billions and billions of years, to them, 250 years could seem like a second to them. And so when they say, it's just about to happen, give or take, 50, 200 years or whatever.
Give or take a century.
But we're off. Well, I mean, from what I understand, we've been given extra time.
Yeah, we're an extra.
But
so can we?
But as well,
is it going to penalties?
What's that? Yeah, right.
Penalties.
Sort of, yeah.
Oh, we are. That's.
Yeah, but you can already see for our fourth density influence at the end of this third density cycle, because the war between and I say war for lack of better description, but there's always going to be a battle against fourth negative and fourth positive and on up. Yeah. And so as we graduate in as this planet graduates in the fourth density positive, we're still going to be in some battle with fourth density negative, and that's the battle of consciousness, or a battle of mind. And you can see how that's
more in fourth density, though. We'll know.
No, still, well, yeah, but still that's starting. You could say that there's a war happening right now on the internet, and it's a war for your mind.
Yeah,
it's a war for your consciousness. They're trying to steer you. They're trying to distract you. That's a fourth density battle. playing itself out also
through
in
as we
third density.
transfer.
So yeah, so there's a bleed through now. You know, we're moving. You know, there's going to be a definite cross that we're going to make where, you know, we're all the way in fourth density. But during that time, third and fourth are definitely sort of crossing, very slowly crossing. And so we're going into the same battles over our consciousness as we're going to be going through in fourth density positive. We're seeing that at the end of third density cycle.
So, Mr. Boxkill, can you, while we're talking about these battles and this evolution and how it's in Earth's soul contract to go positive, can we talk about the subject of hijacking that comes from the negative, though? Because I think that's really important for people to hear, this concept of hijacking. Because we know that, like, 90% of the people in the truther community are not polarizing positive intentionally. They're being used by the negative to help harvest negative. Is that so? Can we talk about what hijacking, so people are aware that this is a phenomenon that absolutely happens?
Yeah, so from what I understand, and this is through the Cassiopean material, is that what the fourth density service to self is trying to do is to hijack this planet as it's moving into fourth density positive, something that's never been done before. And so that is another battle that's going on, is they're trying to throw this whole planet off course
To steal it for themselves. So I want that to sink into people's understanding. And that's why I think Catherine and I have been talking about this a lot. Like, you cannot. So how say you, Mr. Fox, about the whole, oh, it's all a movie, eat your popcorn, sit back, relax, it's fine, it's all taken care of. Is that a ploy to hijack? That's how I see
it. It's a ploy for you to quit doing your work and just to wait around, I guess. You know, to me, it's just a distraction. All this stuff with politics and things like that is just to, you know, to wear us down and to distract us from the inner work that we should be doing.
Okay. So one of the questions, I've got a couple of important questions.
Okay.
First and foremost is, what can people be doing, or do they need to be consciously doing something to make sure that this hijacking isn't successful, is the first question.
No, to focus on your path, you know, that to maybe, you know, take time for yourself and to turn away from all these distractions and do, you know, whatever inner work that you need to do. You know, that's it in a nutshell.
So maintain your sovereignty, basically. Don't just listen all.
Yeah, and then make sure, you know, it's important to take care of yourself. Ra talked about how, you know, how they would go out and during their third density cycle, how they would go out and try to help, you know, others that were sort of stuck and weren't, you know, doing the work that they needed to do to get themselves, you know, together enough to make the choice, but that at the same time they would make sure, even though they would enter into those people's lives where they were suffering, they still made the time to nurture themselves.
Right. So you're not martyring yourself.
And to do their own work, but also, you know, to sit in their peace as well, and to recuperate and to make sure that they didn't get taken off their path. I don't know if that.
Yeah, fantastic. So it's so much similarity here between sort of other spiritual and ancient mystery school teachings, aren't there, coming through in this message?
Yeah.
How will we know then? Does the material, the raw material or the Cassiopean boards, does it actually say anything about the process? So is it just a continual gradual process, or is there a big bang, or is there, you know, how will we know when we are in the fourth density positive?
How will you know? You know, that's a great question. And and that's where there's a little contradiction between the Cassiopean material and the raw material, because the raw material says that when we move into fourth density positive, that we have to leave our physical bodies. But the Cassiopeans say that we'll be able to take our bodies with us, and that's the very.
But isn't that that's the unique thing about this situation we're in? Like, this is the first time a planet's been able to jump to a different density with all the living creatures on it in their bodies.
Well, there's going to be a choice given to some of our second density friends. They may choose to go. Yeah, they may choose to go on.
I've already
to their own evolutionary cycle. They're going to be able to choose to go on to their own evolutionary cycle, or they could possibly choose to come with us. And the Cassiopeans say that's up to them. You know.
So start really being sweet to your pets, your animals, so that they choose. So when they get the choice, they're like, fuck it, I'm out of here. Like, I'm gonna go.
Particularly cats, because we all know cats will make whatever choice is best for them. Although
exactly.
Coming with us, aren't you?
Yeah.
So I'm really not. I'm not sure how that's all gonna how that's all gonna go down. You know. Yeah. But supposedly we're gonna start seeing a lot more, anomalous things starting to happen, whether it be in our skies or right in front of us. Like, it's gonna start getting really. The Cassiopeans say, get ready, because things are gonna start getting really weird. And it's funny because the Cassiopeans have been saying for years and years and years to enjoy the show, to stay out of the way, and have your wits about you, but also, like, it's going to start getting crazy.
But when they say enjoy the show, it's not that this is a movie. They're basically saying don't freak out when things start to happen that are beyond your explanation. Just enjoy the beautiful things you see in the sky.
Yeah,
and it's going to be quite comical to see the people going negative trying to distract us or explain some of these phenomenons. That's going to be kind of comical, because we know they are. They're going to try to distract us from this stuff, aren't they?
Yeah, yeah, and also
China dragon.
What's that?
I said they'll just blame it on balloons from China, won't they?
Right. Yeah. No, I think that things are going to get weird enough where they can't. You're not going to be able to come up with any excuses. They're not going to be able to easily explain it away. And at the same time, the Cassiopeans say that as we move forward, and it's going to be in our lifetimes, they assure us that within the next 20 years that the playing field is going to be leveled, what they say. What that means is that we're going to be able to basically see right through people and what their intentions are. That's happening
more and more.
Yes, and that's part of fourth density. They say as in fourth density, you can read the vibrational awareness and thoughts and intentions of everyone around you. And so as we move closer into fourth density, no one is going to be able to lie to you anymore.
I can see that happening. So many of us are at that stage already, I think. And there's loads of people. You can really see that ability just rising up in so many people now.
Right. Yeah. And so it's just think about that. If a vast majority of us would no longer in any way, shape, or form buy into any lie that was told, how quickly we would all how quickly we would all get on the same page, and how we wouldn't even feel like we needed to even do that much to counter what they're trying to do to us. It would be, action, but with action in inaction. They're trying to lie to us to steer us down this path, and you just look and you just decide, no, I'm not gonna go there. And how that just takes their power away. There's no battle anymore.
Now, Mr. Fox. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Catherine.
Well, I was just going to ask, it's not directly related to the material, but because I know how long you've been studying this for, Mr. Fox, and how in depth you've gone into this and the Cassiopeans, are there some people that have been talking out for a long while that you think have really been picking up on this information and getting it right?
Yeah, I mean, surely there's some people out there that are. Um, but specifically, what are you talking about? Are there other
I'm
people?
talking about there's a lot of different people that have been talking about things that are coming for a long while. And, there's such a huge discrepancy in what people have been saying are going to happen. Are there some other people that you've been following where you're thinking, yes, they're really, because I know you've got a lot of respect for the Law of One material and the Cassiopean material. So are there some people that have been speaking out, not necessarily referencing those sources, but you're thinking, yes, I really think they've been on the right track and been trying to warn us for ages?
Yeah, there have been, random people here and there.
Yeah.
They don't seem to stick around for very long for whatever reason. Yeah, so they put themselves out there in any great extent. But I've definitely, picked up on a little bit here or there, but I don't pay much attention. I don't watch very many, YouTube channels or read much of anyone's writings, in this time, just because I feel like that I have a lot of the information that I need through the Cassiopeans and the raw material in my own practices.
Yeah.
And just what I observe in the world, that's helped me more than anything. Just taking in this information and just looking out there and watching it all play out. And it helps me to really relax into what's happening, given the understanding that I've gotten through this material, and that this is all in a natural process. Not that this happens a lot in other planets, because we're in a very unique situation. Normally, it's not like this. Normally, it's not so chaotic. You would say that this only happens like, such a small percentage of the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's because, so I want to kind of hit, because we see so many of these infiltrators saying that, oh, the controllers are gone. It's all just pretend. What do you say about that, Mr. Fox?
That's ridiculous.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
From my understanding, that's ridiculous.
Yeah, and a good guy would never go to this extent to lie to you and to fool you. So I want people to understand that, like, we're not this it, and people are like, oh no, we're already in because the controllers are gone. But no, we'll know we're in fourth density when there's no more controllers. Correct?
Correct. Yeah, and Ra explains, briefly, because they say that they have a very hard time describing fourth density positive to people who haven't experienced it before. But they have explained what it's like, and they say it's a density where disharmony cannot exist in any way whatsoever. They say, it's a plane of existence where we have no disease, and like I said, it's a plane where we any disagreements are immediately harmonized. It's a plane of compassion and understanding of the sorrows of third density. So it's a time where you're looking back at your third density life, or other third density planets, with compassion and complete understanding of how tough it was. It's a plane of striving towards wisdom and light. So until you see that, we're not there. Yeah, it's completely, it's 100% completely different than what we're experiencing now. There will be no doubt whatsoever whether we're in fourth density positive or not. There'll be no speculation. We're going to either be there or not. And until we get there, we're going to be experiencing disharmony and strife and a battle for our consciousness. Yeah. And so I would say the best thing to do is limit your distractions of all this crazy stuff going around. Do your own inner work. and that's it. Everything else will solve itself when the time is right.
And using that friction provided, using this time as an opportunity to use that friction
And just, yeah, right. And you use this opportunity to be of greater service to others. And that's what the Cassiopeans would say. And Ra would say is that, really what's happening now is all this turmoil is just giving you greater opportunity to be of service to others. So look at all this crazy stuff happening as just an opportunity. Like, how amazing is that? Because when you do graduate into fourth density, positive, your evolution happens so slowly. Think about it, because all the things here that trigger us, cause us pain, cause others pain, and all the different types of pain that you can have, emotional, spiritual pain, physical pain, all that is, it's lessons offered to you. Yeah, it's a chance for you to use your free will in service of others. Yeah, but when we are no longer having to deal with any of those challenges, what makes us grow? Yeah, there's not a whole lot, and the growth happens very, very, very slowly. And that's why there are people lining up, spirits, entities lining up to come down here to be incarnated, because of how it exponentially ramps up our opportunity to grow. Even those wanderers coming down from sixth density, it's offering them great opportunity of growth that they normally could not get in their sixth density cycle. But it takes getting all the way to sixth density to gain enough, to be naive enough to come back down, basically, is what they say. Fifth density, people are like, no thanks. Fourth density for sure, like, no, we remember that all too well.
Nope.
You're not
It's like the Indians, beta.
It takes two whole cycles, major, billion year, fourth density is on average approximately 3 million years. So it takes a social memory complex about 3 million years to move into fifth density. So think about that. So 30 million years go by, you're still like, no, I'm not going back down there. And then however long fifth density is, another 30 million years, nah, I've had enough of that. It takes all the way, 60 million plus years to get to sixth density. And then you'll say, oh, maybe I'll go down and try that out again.
Ask one more question.
Yeah.
This is really fascinating. Can I just ask one more question, Mr. Fox?
Sure.
So going back to the fact that in service to others is really crucial, and going back to the fact that in fourth density positive, it's impossible basically to be dishonest, to tell lies, because everyone will see straight through it, so you wouldn't be there in the first place.
Yeah, right. And plus you would have no reason to tell lies. I mean, it's not a place that you would want to, because there's absolute and total harmony. In your life, you live 90,000 years. One body in fourth density positive, 90,000 years.
So isn't that quite telling now? When people are sitting there's a lot of people that I don't know what to believe, I don't know what to think. Well, the white hats have got to act in this way and be deceptive to play their games. But surely someone who was moving towards fourth density positive wouldn't use lies to achieve their aims or deception.
They would not.
There we go then, folks.
Now, they could withhold information.
Yes, completely. But they wouldn't deliberately use lies and manipulation to do it.
Well, I mean, yes and no, because, that's complicated.
But they wouldn't hurt people. They wouldn't go out there and deliberately hurt people and say, oh, no, it's part of the greater good.
No, they would not do that.
They would not dress up as black hats and invade Mar-a-Lago, would they?
No. But at the same time, if a lie being told was done in the spirit
of protection,
protecting someone, then I think that lie is necessary. It's neutralized.
and that I think we can understand that. But what we're talking about are these grandiose actions that the negative side is taking, and then there are people in the truther community reading their tarot cards or whatever saying, oh no, that's the white hats, wink wink, it's all, but it's not. They wouldn't grandiosely be out there causing a pain onto other people and confusing other people if they were going positive. We're talking about these big things we're seeing that we're seeing in our community of people saying that's the white hats just dressing up, but if they're hurting somebody else,
right,
in the cause of deception, then that is not positive. That they're not going positive, and so people just need to have some common sense with that. If there's an entity out there hurting somebody else, then it's not service to others.
Right.
Right. They're not dressing up as black hats. They're not that's delusional thinking, and that's part of the hijacking to believe that. So right. Yeah, I think that's what we're getting at. Yeah, because I understand, like, we've talked about that, Mr. Fox, before. It's like if you're out in public and your friend meets you and the outfit they have on makes them look horrendous, you would not say to them, oh my God, you look awful in the middle of public where they have no way of changing, right? Like that would hurt them. Yeah. So there is withholding. If you use something little like that, there is withholding information that's not going to withholding that, saying that information isn't going to help that person. It could hurt them, and it's innocent. So you keep it back. Like, it's little stuff like that, or if somebody is trying to capture someone and hurt them and that person hides and someone knows where they are, you're going to lie. You're not going to say, oh yeah, they're under the bed. No, you're like, you think about like Anne Frank, right? Like, you're not gonna be like, oh yeah, they're hiding up in that attic. No, you would lie to protect that person. So that's, I think that
okay.
Sorry?
Yeah, nothing.
Okay. So anyway, is there anything you want to close out with, Catherine? I know we've gone over an hour now, so.
I think this is absolutely fantastic. I think Mr. Fox has given people some really useful practical advice in terms of, okay, what can you do? What does this mean to you? We're going to put the links below for where people can get extra information. So really, my final question for this part one, Mr. Fox, is there anything else you wanted to leave people with?
No, not necessarily. I mean, there's so much more we could talk about, but we'll just save it for next time.
And also, I'll end saying this is going to be aired on both Catherine and my channel at the exact same time. Of course, Catherine's 5 hours ahead, so it's just gonna pop up at the same time. 1 o'clock her time, 8 a.m. my time. So whichever channel you're watching this on, if there are any questions you have regarding this, I would say, Catherine, should we ask them to leave the questions on whichever channel and we can collect them?
Absolutely. And we can cover those in part 2. Yeah. For sure. Thank you so much, Mr. Fox.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you. I'll see you soon.
Okay.
Thanks,
all right. Bye, everybody.
Thank you so much for taking the time to listen. And if you feel inspired, please do share with your friends and family. My goal is to inspire as many people as I can to live their best lives, to stay curious and to raise their consciousness and that of the collective. So to do this, I need to reach as many people as possible, and this needs your help. If you feel drawn, would you be willing to share your favourite episode with 5 different people? This helps us spread the word and also helps me encourage some exciting new guests to take part in this podcast. If you feel drawn to do that, I will be very, very grateful. All the links and discount codes where applicable for all the products that I support are on my 2 websites, catherineedwards.life and catherineedwardsacademy.com. All of the products are personally tried and tested by me, my family, and my clients. And finally, please do press the follow or subscribe button, depending which platform you're listening on. And above all, stay curious and stay free.